Hello, Chemistry 11. It's Ms. Pence, and today we are going to talk about limiting and excess reactants. These will be the simplest form of these. We're just going to look at how to figure out who is the limiting reactant, who is the excess reactant, and how much product you're going to get. So let's start with an example. So we have a reaction which is copper plus silver nitrate, AgNO3, goes to copper 2 nitrate, CuNO3, 2, plus silver, Ag. Now this is going to be a limiting reactant problem, and limiting reactant problems are all stoichiometry problems, and if you have a stoichiometry problem, the first thing you have to do always is to balance the equation. So let's balance this. We have 2 nitrates over on the right, so we're going to put a 2 there. That gives us 2 nitrates, and that means we're also going to need 2 silver on the right. Okay, and our question this time is going to be given 3.5 grams of copper and 6.0 grams of silver nitrate, AgNO3. A, what is the limiting reactant? What is the excess reactant? And I'm just going to show you my abbreviations for those. Limiting reactant is going to be LR. Okay, and excess reactant is going to be XS for the excess. Okay, so LR for limiting reactant and XS for excess reactant. And then part B is going to be how many grams of silver can be formed. How many grams of silver, Ag, can be formed? Okay. So in any limiting reactant problem, the first thing you need to do is you need to find the moles of product that could be produced. I'm going to underline the could because the excess reactant, it could produce that much if you had lots of the limiting reactant, but you don't, so you won't actually make that much. Anyway, find the moles of product that could be produced by each reactant. And in order to do that, we are going to use just normal stoichiometry. So we have our first reactant, which is the copper, and we have the second reactant, which is the silver nitrate. Okay? And when we say the moles of product, you can choose whichever product you want to. Okay? So when we say moles of product, we could choose either the copper nitrate or we could choose the silver. Doesn't matter which as long as you're consistent. But because in part B we're asked for the grams of silver, I'm going to choose silver because it means I have to do less work. Okay? So let's start by finding the moles of product, which in this case is going to be the silver, that can be produced from each reactant from the copper and from the silver nitrate. So let's say we want the, don't want to call that A, I've already got an A. Okay, so we want to find the moles of silver from reactant 1, which is copper. So that's going to be, we start with 3.5 grams of copper. And in order to find moles of silver, we need to convert first. Grams of copper needs to go into moles of copper. So that's going to be 1 mole of copper for 63.5 grams of copper. And then in order to go from moles of one substance to moles of another substance, we need to use the mole ratio from the balanced equation. And so in front of the copper, there is no coefficient, so there's going to be 1 mole of copper, and the coefficient in front of the silver is a 2. So there's going to be 1 mole of copper for every 2 moles of silver. So there's going to be 1 mole of copper for every 2 moles of silver. We get twice as much silver as we started with copper. Okay, and the moles of copper had to go on the bottom, so it cancels out properly. The only unit we have left is the moles of silver. So we do the math on that, and we get 0.1102 moles of silver. That's how much silver could be made from the copper. Now we do exactly the same thing for our other reactant. So we find the moles of silver, which is our product, that could be made, from our other reactant, in this case the silver nitrate. Oh, that's not the right formula for silver nitrate, just AgNO3. There we go. And we start with, let's figure out, we got to scroll back up again, we have 6 grams of the silver nitrate. So 6.0 grams of silver nitrate, AgNO3. In order to do any stoichiometry, we need to be working in moles. So we need to convert our grams of silver nitrate into moles of silver nitrate. And that needs the molar mass of silver nitrate, which is 169.9 grams per 1 mole. And then we're still looking for the same product as before. So we're going to find the moles of silver, and we want to cancel the moles of silver nitrate. And where do we find that mole to mole ratio? That comes from our balanced equation. So we have, for the silver nitrate, we have a 2, and for our silver, we have a 2, so that's 2 to 2 ratio. There are 2 moles of silver nitrate for every, 2 moles of silver for every 2 moles of silver nitrate. Finish calculating that, and we get 0.0353 moles of silver. Once you found the moles of product that could be made from each reactant, you have to say, well, who could make less? Who is limiting the amount of product we can form? Well, here's our smaller amount of product, okay? From our silver nitrate, we can only make 0.0353 moles of silver, whereas our other one, from our copper, we could make 0.1102. That's a bigger number, yeah? So we are going to run out of silver nitrate first. And what that means is that silver nitrate is our limiting reactant, our LR. Silver nitrate is our limiting reactant because it limits how much silver we can get. It limits how much product, silver, we can get. And what that also means is that our excess reactant then is going to be the copper. So copper is our excess reactant. So any limiting reactant problem, the first thing you're going to want to do is identify who is the limiting reactant, who is the excess reactant, and then you're set. Okay. For part B of this question, we want to know how many grams of silver can actually be formed. So for part B, we want the grams of silver formed. Well, we're limited in the in the grams of silver formed by the moles of silver that can be formed from the limiting reactant. We cannot make 0.1102 moles because we're going to run out of silver nitrate first. So we can only make 0.0353 moles of silver. And I've sort of messed up a little bit here because I've got stuff in the way. There we go. So this is the maximum amount of silver that can be formed in terms of moles. And in order to find the grams, we just, convert it into grams like we've been doing forever, okay? So we got our moles of silver on the bottom and our grams of silver on the top. And that is going to be 107.9 grams of silver per 1 mole of silver. And we get 12 grams of silver can be formed. And that's it. And I'm going to cut this video off for today because I think it's better to have shorter videos. I'll make another one and post that as well. So hopefully that helps you out a little bit, and we'll just keep going with some other problems in some other videos. Bye.